Shocking words from Navruz about Alina. The confession that marked the new year. Shocking words from Navruz about Alina. We still see each other. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Turkish Series Stars. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel, friends. There are friendships that don't need headlines or noise. Time passes, projects change, careers scatter in completely different directions, and yet a quiet bond refuses to vanish. Today we're opening the door on a calm but unshakable connection that endured after a defining era for two names who took their first steps side by side, learned the set lights together, rose to fame in the same whirlwind, and never once lost the respect that anchored them, Navruz and Alina. A confession from Navruz years later rippled through the celebrity world. He said it without embellishment, as if speaking to himself more than to the cameras. Alina holds a special place in my heart. Those words aren't just nostalgia. They carry the scent of their first set, the pulse of early rehearsals, the careful breath taken before a first big scene, the security of leaning on someone steady when everything else felt unsteady. They hold the memory of a colleague who turned into a confidant, and a friendship that did not fray even when life pulled them in different directions. So how did this tie begin? What happened on that early set where they crossed paths for the first time? What role did Alina play in Alp's career? And most importantly, why is this bond being discussed again at the start of a new year, after so much water has gone under the bridge? With heartfelt confessions, backstage details, and unguarded lines, let's revisit the quiet, lasting friendship between Alina and Navruz. Alina and Navruz. A connection that doesn't fade, and the same sincerity even as the year turns. In an industry where friendships often evaporate between one project and the next, where sets shift and schedules devour promises, some ties harden instead of weakening. The thread stitching Alina and together is one of those rare constants. Once upon a time it began in a rehearsal room, under cheap fluorescent lights, with two young talents hunched over pages, trading lines and glances with that mixture of fear and hunger only newcomers know. Now, years later, it still lives with respect, affection, and an easy appreciation that neither has ever tried to sell to the tabloids. It all began with a test set that was never supposed to matter. Not a red carpet premiere or a big launch, but a pilot workshop where directors weigh potential and producers watch for chemistry. By 2010 standards, it was a modest laboratory, a camera, a sound guy fighting a hum, a handful of chairs, a script scattering between romantic tension and growing pains. Alina arrived with that focused calm people now recognize as her signature. She could be delicate in one breath and steel in the next. Not yet the man whose name would headline summer hits and intense dramas, brought a quiet gravity. He listened more than he spoke. That day, in front of a blinking tally light and a few strangers too tired to smile, they built a scene that felt like stepping onto a tightrope and finding someone's hand already there. For it was a leap. Not just a job, but a doorway into the weight of expectation, the buzz of early fame, the fear of falling in front of everyone. And Alina, in that compressed little world, became his first true on-camera partner in a way that mattered. He said it much later, in a tone that suggested relief more than boasting, "She supported me a lot." Those words point to a very specific time. The first big glare. The headlines waiting to pounce. Endless notes about posture, line rhythm, gaze. Public curiosity that feels like warmth until it burns. In the storm of that first surge, having someone on set who could steady the ground was no small blessing. Alina wasn't just talented back then, she was prepared. She treated the page like a score. She came ready, she stayed present, and she drew a circle of seriousness around the work that made everyone step up. She gave as much off camera as she did on, and that is what remembers when he says she helped him through a fragile period. Later, when he added, "She was also my first co-star," he signaled something more than chronology. He placed her at a hinge in his life, the point where nerves turn into craft. There's a resonance that stretches from their screen personas to their real temperaments. Alp has often been drawn to characters who speak softly but carry storms inside, composed men torn by distance, maturity, and the unseen negotiations of the heart. He has admitted, indirectly, that he recognizes himself in that reserve, that slow-burning strength. Alina, in turn, has repeatedly played young women whose delicacy hides a stubborn core, who won't collapse even when the plot begs for it. Years later, viewers still speak about how their energies mirror each other's, her clarity and his quiet, and how that combination, birthed in a small workshop room, made a kind of cinematic logic. What the audience later felt in different projects wasn't coincidence. It was craft meeting compatibility. The phrase "see you later" may sound like polite industry jargon, but it carries a particular weight here. When Alp said, "We still see each other," the tabloids rushed to print, but he wasn't teasing romance or baiting headlines. He was telling the simple truth of two people who haven't let time turn them into strangers. And when he followed it with, "I admire her very much. She has proven her worth in Turkey," he was naming more than professional respect. He was nodding to the risks Alina took, the reinventions she chose, and the unglamorous grit that makes a career last after the glitter fades. If Alp's confessions form the spine of this story, Alina's steady words over the years fill in the flesh. In her interviews, whenever his name surfaces, she speaks of discipline and calm. She mentions focus. She mentions how he shows up prepared and leaves the ego outside. She locates their camaraderie inside respect, not mutual publicity. And in an industry where shouty declarations are currency, that kind of measured admiration is more convincing than any noisy claim. They didn't walk the same path after that first crossing. Alina tested herself in contrasting shades, airy romance, sharp drama, roles that asked her to be light and others that hammered the heart. Alp gravitated toward deeper waters. Characters that grew in shadow, stories that asked patience instead of instant payoff. Different projects. Different rhythms. But the line didn't snap. If anything, distance gave it elasticity. In one of his most candid moments, Alp said, "I cannot predict where my career will go. I am completely focused on my work." Beneath the certainty of that last line, you can hear the echo of those early days, the friendships forged not through parties or premieres but through trust under fluorescent lights. New year, old friendships. We love to treat the year's first week as a reset, as if everything needs fresh paint. But some relationships don't require reinvention, they're already built on stone. The friendship between Alina and Alp is one of those. The gossip columns whisper a recurring detail. On certain special days, birthdays, milestones, New Year's, they exchange messages, share brief calls, keep a ritual alive. It isn't loud. No curated posts, no glittering public feasts. Just recognition, just continuity. It belongs both to the past and to the present, and if the future is kind, to the years not yet written. At the heart of the industry, this sort of bond is rare because it resists the market's favorite trick, turning every human tie into a headline. Alp once said, "I will continue in this industry listening to the voice of my heart." Perhaps that's why their friendship endures, because both have consistently chosen the slow honesty of craft over the fast currency of noise. When intuition and values drive the work, the connections it shelters don't require big performances to survive. They remain within the bounds of respect. Alina holds a special place. After all these years, those words read like the title of a chapter in his life rather than a slogan. It is a summary of a beginning, of becoming, of a friendship that did not dissolve into forgotten selfies. It isn't a sentimental souvenir. It points to a living thread, still present, still warm, still able to deliver comfort on a cold night in early January when the city feels too big and old memories feel close. In the universe of celebrity chatter, love stories are catnip. Crises, breakups, sudden silences, they dominate. But friendships? They're quiet. They don't demand a stage, which might be why they frequently outlast the rest. Alp's sentence, "Alina holds a special place in my heart," isn't only a salute to the past, it's proof of a living bond. And Alina's steady ascent, the way she has repeatedly proven her worth, makes his admiration cut deeper. They moved on to different scripts, different rooms, different midnight worries. What they didn't let go of was the mutual respect that held them upright when everything was new. As we step into a new year, their story offers a simple reminder: friendship isn't measured by being on the same set, but by keeping the same feeling even as months turn into years. Maybe their paths will cross again in front of the camera. Maybe we'll watch them share a frame and feel that old click that startled a room full of tired crew members long ago. Or maybe this bond will continue to exist in the elegant quiet where it began. What we do know is this: some ties don't fade with time or vanish under the next trending topic. They persist because they were built without witnesses, then proved themselves in the light. If you, too, feel the quiet strength of the friendship between Alina Boz and Alp Navruz, remember to like the video and share your thoughts. Do you believe this connection will return to the screen? Would you want to see them test their old chemistry in a new story? Tell us in the comments. We'll keep listening to the voice of the heart, and we'll meet again in the next video, right here on Turkish Series Stars. Happy New Year!